All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the world's biggest, but kinda invisible public health threats, viral hepatitis.
Okay, let me ask you something. What if I told you there's a global killer out there right now, on par with some of the most notorious diseases we know, but most people who have it don't even know it? The answer? Viral hepatitis. Yeah, it's this silent epidemic that's just hiding in plain sight. And to really get a handle on the scale of this, you just have to look at the numbers. Back in 2015, just 1 year, viral hepatitis caused 1.34 million deaths around the world.
And here's where it gets really staggering. When you put that number next to other big names, 1.34 million, that's more people than die from HIV that year. Way more than from malaria. It's right up there with tuberculosis. So you see, this is not some minor issue. We're talking about one of the planet's absolute top infectious killers.
So, what are we actually dealing with here? To really understand the threat, we've got to meet the culprits, this whole family of viruses.
First things first, what does hepatitis even mean? It's actually a pretty simple medical term. Hepa, that's for the liver, and itis just means inflammation. So, boom, hepatitis is just inflammation of the liver. Simple as that.
And when we're talking about viral hepatitis, we're mostly zeroing in on 5 specific viruses that absolutely love to target the liver. You've probably heard their names: hepatitis A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, 5 viruses sounds like a lot to keep track of, right? But it's actually simpler than it seems. You can basically split them into 2 main groups, just based on how they get around. First, you've got hepatitis A and E. These guys travel the fecal-oral route, so think contaminated food, dirty water. Then you have the other crew, B, C, and D. They're bloodborne. They spread through infected blood or other body fluids. And honestly, just getting that one distinction down is, well, it's critical. But where you see the real key differences is when you look at the risk of the infection becoming chronic, sticking around for life. With A and E, that risk is pretty much zero. You get sick, you feel awful, but then you get better. End of story. But with B, and especially with hepatitis C, oh man, that virus can set up shop for a lifetime. And that is where the real danger is.
Right, so that's the whole ball game right there. Understanding that chronic infection, it's like a really, really slow-burning fuse that can lead to this catastrophic damage over many years. So let's walk down that path.
First, let's just get the terms straight. An acute infection, that's the short-term illness right after you get infected. It's when your body is in the middle of a big fight with the virus. Now, a chronic infection, that's what happens when your immune system loses that fight and the virus just doesn't leave. If it's been in your body for more than 6 months, it's considered chronic. It's become a permanent resident. And here's the scariest part of its whole strategy. Chronic hepatitis is almost always a silent disease. You feel totally fine. For years, even decades, the virus can be slowly, quietly wrecking your liver and you have no idea. The symptoms? They often only show up after the damage is already severe and maybe even irreversible. This whole devastating process, it just unfolds over decades. It starts with that constant inflammation, which leads to scarring on the liver. That stage is called fibrosis. Then, as that scarring gets worse and worse, it turns into cirrhosis, which is basically severe endgame level damage. And from there, the risk for things like liver cancer and total liver failure just goes through the roof. So yeah, the liver, that's the battleground. It's your body's most important filter, and viral hepatitis launches this long, sustained attack on this vital organ. The inflammation it causes, that's the engine driving this whole destructive process. Okay, I know, that all sounds incredibly bleak. But this is the point in the story where things take this just remarkable turn. Because in the last few decades, science has given us a complete revolution in how we fight back. First up, prevention. This is huge. We have incredibly safe and effective vaccines for hepatitis A and B. For the ones that spread through food and water, A and E, basic stuff like clean water and just washing your hands are incredibly powerful. And for the bloodborne ones, B, C, and D, things like screening blood donations, practicing safe sex, and not sharing needles have been absolute game changers. And to really appreciate the jump we've made, listen to this. Dr. Otto Young over at UCLA, he remembers a time when hepatitis C was just called non-A, non-B hepatitis. Why? Because they hadn't even identified the virus yet. Doctors knew something was out there causing all this liver disease, but they had no idea what it was. A total medical mystery.
So we went from a complete medical mystery to this. One single stunning number. Greater than 90%. So what does that mean? That is the cure rate for hepatitis C today.
And that number, It represents one of the greatest medical wins of our time. And we're not talking about some horrible, punishing treatment here. No, we're talking about a course of simple pills. You take them for just 8 to 12 weeks, and they can completely wipe out the vast majority of hepatitis C infections. It is a true, honest-to-God medical marvel.
So, wait a minute. We've got vaccines for A and B, a straight-up cure for C, so the problem should be solved, right? Well, this brings us to the final and maybe the toughest piece of the whole puzzle.
I mean, the tools are so good that back in 2016, the World Health Organization set this incredibly ambitious goal to basically eliminate viral hepatitis as a public health threat by the year 2030.
But here's the huge, massive wall we're running into. An estimated 80%. I mean, think about that. A staggering 4 out of every 5 people with chronic hep C, they don't even know they have it. So how? How do you possibly cure a disease in millions of people who have no idea they're even sick?
And that's the key takeaway right there. The final barriers, they aren't really medical anymore. Now it's about awareness. It's about people being able to find and get a test. It's about overcoming the social stigma that's still attached to the disease. The challenge has literally shifted from the science lab out into our communities.
And so that leaves us with one final and really urgent question. We have the vaccines, we have the cure. All the tools we could possibly need to end this epidemic are literally in our hands. The only question left is, can we actually reach the millions of people who are walking around right now completely unaware that they're at risk?